Just okay. Now, what about the veins? As the veins enters into the medulla, the veins are formed, and from veins, this vein. Now, what is peculiarity? Right suprarenal vein and left suprarenal vein. Right suprarenal vein drains directly into inferior vena cava. Left suprarenal vein drains into the renal vein. And what is peculiarity of the another peculiarity of the venous system is that veins of the medulla are also called adrenomedullary veins. They have longitudinal muscle fibers. This is something of peculiarity, more thicker, and whenever they contract, what they do, because we know suprarenal gland is endocrine gland, secretes the most of the steroid hormones from the cortex and now the epinephrine. So whenever it gets accumulated in venous, it is being pushed, and that is how it reduces the volume of suprarenal gland. That is how it reduces the volume of the suprarenal gland. So those are two peculiarities of vasculature. One, arteries comes from the capsule. They from the suprarenal portal system. Second, veins in the medulla has a lot of muscle fibers, longitudinal muscle fibers, which helps in draining these hormones into blood circulation. These are the few things what we have to remember. Now we'll go further. We're going to adrenal cortex, the outer layer. Cells of adrenal cortex have characteristic features of steroid secreting cells. Did you remember? Steroid secreting cells has to metabolize the cholesterol, phospholipids, so has to produce the steroid hormone. So this cholesterol is going to accumulate. Cholesterol metabolism requires smooth endoplasmic reticulum. So we are and then all this requires a lot of mitochondria. Second. Third thing is that is accumulation of cholesterol means flat globules in the cells. So we can see a lot of small vacuoles in the steroid secreting cells. So these are few peculiarities. What is going to be consistent? These include central nuclei because of large amount of mitochondria is more acidophilic because there is smooth endoplasmic reticulum, state is acidophilic and rich in lipid droplets. That's why they will show because it is washed during the preparation. We see the small vacuoles in the cells. The adrenal cortex has three concentric zones from outer to inner side: zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, and zona reticularis. Zona reticularis. So these three words we have to remember. Now we'll go one by one.
So that is breakage in your voice.
Okay. Under connective tissue capsule,
And
are you able to
disturbance.
are you able to listen?
So that is lots of disturbance behind and your breakage in voice.
It is absolutely okay. You listen and then later on I will send you a copy of this. Okay. Okay. And the connective tissue capsule is zona glomerulosa. Are you able to listen now?
Yes, sir.
Hey, somebody is having a. Okay. So zona glomerulosa consists of closely packed cells. That is first thing what you have to remember. Second thing, it looks like an inverted U shape. I will show you the figure. It looks like a small clumps of cells beneath the capsule. It looks like an inverted U-shaped structure, and the cells will be columnar to pyramidal. Zona glomerulosa is consists of almost 15% of the cortex. Cells are polyhedral having rounded nucleus, rich in mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, and what you have to remember always, smooth endoplasmic reticulum. What it secretes that you must be well versed, that is mineralocorticoid, also called aldosterone. What basic chunk of function of this? It acts on the kidney at the level of DCT. It is a major regulator of the salt balance. We know that the sodium has been retained because of the sodium water is retained. So can you connect this with some system? We call it as no, that is a juxtaglomerular apparatus where there is renin angiotensin mechanism. This renin-angiotensin mechanism also has a profound effect on aldosterone secretion. So we're going to see the small word about that. So first we'll see the slide. If you see just beneath the capsule, there is a clumps of cells. Can you see these clumps of cells? These clumps of cells, like an inverted U shape, this is going to be a 15% of zona glomerulosa. What it secretes? It secretes the mineralocorticoids or adrenocorticoid. Then, as you can see, a distinct zone which is coming below. This is going to see a lot of small vacuoles. This is going to be zona fasciculata. So you can distinguish. This can be seen even in our slide very clearly. Just see it. Okay. Now, zona mineralocorticos are understood. Where it acts? It acts with renin angiotensin aldosterone system, also called as RAS, RAAS. So how it acts? Whenever there is reduced amount of sodium in the proximal converter tube, at the juxtaglobin apparatus, renin-angiotensin mechanism activates. Renin is secreted in the blood. It converts angiotensinogen 1 into angiotensin 1. In lungs, angiotensinogen 2, under the influence of angiotensin 1, gets converted under the ACE enzyme that gets converted into angiotensinogen 2, which helps in secretion of aldosterone. That's why it is called RAS, renin angiotensin aldosterone system. That is the word what we have to remember. This aldosterone acts on the DCT, that is a major component. Then also it acts on the gastric mucosa, salivary gland, and the sweat gland. Where everywhere it tries to conserve the sodium levels. It tries to conserve the sodium level. And that is once the sodium comes more in the blood, osmotic pressure increases. Once the osmotic pressure increases, it helps in retention of water. One thing is good, but whenever we are using the artificial steroids, the same action will give rise to edema. So that's why we say steroid taking patient may have edema. OC pills taking patient may have edema. Helps in sodium reabsorption and potential elimination. It lacks. Why it doesn't convert? Because this is the same thing. Cholesterol is going to make all the hormones in the cortex. So why it doesn't produce the glucocorticoids? Because it lacks enzyme called as 17 alpha hydrolase. It lacks the enzyme called as 17 alpha hydrolase, which prevents it to convert into glucocorticoids. So it remains as aldosterone. We go in detail in the biochemistry. We'll get all the steps how one by one each hormone is formed. So here in zona globulosa, which hormone is absent? 17 alpha hydrolase. Then it acts on DCT, gastric mucosa, salivary, and sweat gland. What it helps is it helps in salt balance. That is what we have to remember. You can see it at high power. This is capsule, and you can see the clumps of cells. This region, this is going to be a zona globule. You can see the sinusoids in between. Okay, as we go ahead, the next layer, that is what we see, is called zona fasciculata. It is almost 65 to 80% of the cortex, and this is always what has been emphasized, that why the suprarenal glands are essential for life. We always say that whenever during the emergencies of the situation, like a fight, fright, and flight mechanism, always a large amount of, adrenal surge is there, epinephrine surge is there. Or I will say that, okay, so what has happened is that basically the two hormones which comes in hand, one is glucocorticoid, life-saving thing, plus the epinephrine. These two hormones are in hand. We are going to see in brief about that. So before that, we talk about zona fasciculata. It contains 65 to 80% of the cortex. Long cords of large polyhedrosis, usually two thick cells are adjacent to each other, and in between there is a capillary or sinusoids. Nuclei are lightly state. Many of them are binucleated, indicating that the cells are very highly active. It has a large amount of mitochondria. Cells of zona globulosa produces glucocorticoids, or especially cortisols, which is primarily affects the carbohydrate metabolism. See, that was a salt metabolism. Here, the glucocorticoids mainly helps in carbohydrate metabolism. What it does, that is what we will in short while, because once it is secreted, it affects on various places, especially it has a similar effect like insulin, increasing the absorption of glucose, making more availability of glucose in the cell, one side. Second side, mobilize the fatty acid so that fatty acids are also available in the cell, as well as this thing goes into the liver. Glucose is produced in the liver by one amino acid and fatty acid. This one. So what we are seeing before that, we just go. Now we have seen first slide. That is global zona global. Now next below, can you see the cells are different? They are arranged parallel to each other. They are having a lot of vacuoles inside. Central place nucleus. Cells are slightly larger, lot of small vacuoles, and eosinophilic in nature. So this is going to be the zona fasciculata, almost 60 to 80% of the cortex. Functions of glucocorticoids, this is what you have to remember. We have said in zona glomerulosa, these enzymes were absent, but in zona fasciculata, these enzymes are present. One enzyme is called 17 alpha hydrolase. Second enzyme is called 17-20 lyase. These two enzymes plays an important role in production of glucocorticoids. Glucocorticoids, as soon as comes in the blood, in 30 seconds it starts activating. Insulin takes a longer time. So one effect is common in insulin and the glucocorticoids. Both increases the availability of glucose in the cell. But contrast, insulin reduces the blood sugar level, but glucocorticoids increases also simultaneously blood sugar level. This is what always asked in exam. What is the difference between insulin and glucocorticoid? Both have same action inside the cell, but outside it is a different action. Outside, the one reduces the blood sugar level, another increases the blood sugar level. So how it happens? So gluconeogenesis occurs in the liver because of glucocorticoids. Whatever amino acids and fatty acids which is mobilized. Amino acids comes from the muscles. Fatty acids are coming from the stores in the adipose tissue. Both are coming into the liver and gets converted into gluconeogenesis, glucose formation. First step occurs in the liver. Second step occurs glycogenesis. Once the glucose is formed, this glucose gets polymerized in the liver to form glycogenesis. That is glycogenous form and gets stored. It may be one of the reasons when a person takes a long time steroids that may leads to a fatty liver. That is what it is called. What it does, other thing on other cells, it increases the amount of glucose and fatty acid levels inside the peripheral tissue in the cells. But out of which metabolically it enhances use of fatty acid oxidation. What happens whenever there is large amount of fatty acid oxidation? It creates a lot of free radicals, and this is going to be detrimental. That's why the person who is always in stress, long time in stress, or is taking some steroids, like in place taking dopa or the steroid, anabolic steroids, they have in a long time their cells gets a lot of free radicals, leading us to various diseases. So that is what we have to understand. On one side increases, but for the short time, when the glucose and fatty acid levels are more, since it is good for the fight and flight mechanism. But if it is for longer time, it is always detrimental. It is what we have to understand. In clinical practice, we have to keep always this in mind. So these are the few functions of the glucocorticoids. We are going to go further. This is how the cells will look in high power. These are the cells which are of the zona fasciculata, and you can see the lot of sinusoids, large sinusoids in between. So this is zona fasciculata. Functions remaining helps in now another thing. This is the most important function. I said initially, glucocorticoids and epinephrine has hand-in-hand function. This sinusoids, which is coming from the periphery, capillaries from the zona glomerulosa, now it is going to sinusoids fasciculata, it will be reticularius, later on this blood will go into the medulla. Once this blood, which carries the glucocorticoids in large amount, goes into the medulla, the specific region, it helps in conversion of non-epinephrine into epinephrine. See, this is how it works. So whenever there is large amount of glucocorticoids, epinephrine is also secreted in large amount. This is how the fight-time flight mechanism starts. So it converts non-epinephrine into epinephrine. So this is another function of glucocorticoids. Suppresses immune response. Suppresses immune. This is additional function. This is what you have to, that is why whenever we get uncontrolled inflammation, or we always give the suppressor, that is the steroids to the patient, or we have autoimmune disease, we give the steroid to the patient. It can also be called as anti-inflammatory action, especially during septic shocks and anaphylactic shocks. Remember, this is very important. You have to remember glucocorticoids also helps in suppressing immune responses. And this is what we talk about. And one more thing, interesting thing is that during development, neural crystals are nothing but the neuroectodermal. They come into the medulla and they lie into the medulla. But what you have to remember, these neural crystals will not produce the axons. They will only have to secrete epinephrine and non-epinephrine. This is itself is a neurotransmitter. But then why it doesn't produce the axons? Again, one of the first functions, just mention it here, glucocorticoids from the fetal adrenal helps in suppressing to form the axons of these cells. So who suppresses the axon formations in medulla of the in the medulla of the cortex, medulla of the suprarenal gland? That is glucocorticoids. This is a question which has been asked in the NIT. So just remember, so glucocorticoids suppress to form the axons in the adrenal medulla. This again one of the functions you can add in the glucocorticoids. So now we see the next, this one, this area. Now see the cells are more densely packed, slightly basophilic. Next layer, and this is what is lot of large sinusoids. So this is going to be the zona reticularis. This is going to be the zona reticularis. What the zona reticularis does? Zona reticularis comprises of the 10%. So zona glomerulus are 15%. Zona fasciculata 60 to 80%. Zona reticularis 10%. It produces weak androgens. It produces the weak androgens. What it produces? Weak androgens. It consists of smaller cells disposed in network of irregular cause interwoven with the capillaries. What it produces three type of different hormones. Most of them are precursors of the testosterone androgens. Dihydroepiandrosterone is one. Dihydroepiandrosterone sulfate, the DHEAS, that is what is there. And the third one is aldosterone. These things, three things are produced by zona reticularis. Its role is major role is in especially in the female subjects or in the women. It secretes a weak androgen which has been converted into testosterone in various tissues of the body and the women. Especially it helps in secondary sexual characters, that is especially the axillary and pubic hairs and other few of the things. And essential enzyme that requires to convert this is called 17-ketose-steroid reductase. And this 17-ketose-steroid reductase may be deficient in certain subjects and leads to no axillary or pubic hairs. That is one of the indications of this. Secretion of this is under the control of SCTH and feedback regulation of the pituitary hypothalamus. So weak androgens more seen in the female subjects. That is what it, and its effect is production of testosterone. This is how it looks, zona fasciculata. Now we'll go to the next thing, something interesting fact that is called fetal adrenal cortex. What is this fetal adrenal cortex? This fetal adrenal cortex is slightly different. It will show a very different type of a cell. At just up to 10 birth, the adrenal glands are almost of the size of the kidneys. Why it is so large? Why? Because it fetus in mother's womb is always under the stress. So whenever it is under the stress, it secretes extra amount of steroid, which is slightly different than the what adult steroid is there. So fetal adrenal cortex contains large amount of fetuses. They are larger. They are slightly different. What they do, they produce almost 200 milligram of corticosteroids, almost twice that of the adult. That is one thing. Second important thing, which has been initially found accidentally, that it helps fetal adrenal corticosteroids helps in maturation of the lungs. That is what we have to remember. It starts secreting around 28 weeks, around 7 months. It increases slowly in fetus. The what it requires the inflation of the lung. It requires the it helps requires a surfactant. So what happens? So this is a fetal cortex. Our frontal cortex is almost 80% of the gland. What it does, that is what you have to remember. In fetus, it helps to produce the surfactants, and that is what we say in premature babies. Amount of surfactant is less. So in clinical practice, what we do? We do is that whenever we suspect premature delivery, whenever we suspect, we can suspect with various. That is what we want to study in gynec obstetrics. But at that time, when I suspect premature delivery, at least 12 hours to 12 hours before the delivery, the start of the pains, we can give the steroids from outside. And once I give the steroid from outside, it helps in the production of surfactant. It reduces the admission of the premature babies in the premature wards almost by 80%, and that is a big thing in the. So there's always said, always whenever I suspect premature labor, I always give the steroids, and that helps in the baby for respiration. That is what we have to know. That's why the fetal adrenal cortex is one of the things. Another thing which has been found in fetal development, the neural crus cells can be seen as a bunch of cells arising and coming near the capsule around at the 14 weeks as a bunch of cells, like a bluish colored dots. It enters into the cortex, migrates to the cortex around 18 to 20 weeks. 14 weeks it is coming as a bunch. That is called neuroblastic nodule. The neural crus cells, which comes on the surface of the adrenal cortex at the, in the fetal life around 14th week, that is around 3.5 months, that can be very well identified. Then it migrates and then it disperses to form the fetal, sorry, that is the adrenal medulla. So remember that the cells, neural cells, bunch of neural cells called as the neuroblastic nodule. That is also called as the neuroblastic nodule. That can be very well can be seen in the fetal adrenal cortex. Nucleus migrates as a neuroblastic nodules and forms ultimately the epinephrine and non-epinephrine secreting. It forms a fetal. Another thing, whatever the secretion is there, that is going to be converted into active form of the steroid, even with the help of the placenta. We know that placenta also secretes large amount of progesterone. So placental, which cell secretes the this secretions of the placenta? That is basically the syncytotrophoblast cells. So fetal adrenal and placenta works in simultaneously. That's why it is called fetal placental unit. Helps in lung maturity. So this is what we talk about. Then I will talk about the adrenal medulla. We'll talk about the adrenal medulla. What is adrenal medulla? Adrenal medulla composed of large, pale staining polyhedral cells because it is altogether different cells. They are not steroid secreting cells. They are epinephrine and non-epinephrine secreting cells. They are clumps of cord supported by reticular fibers. Medulla parenchyma. Also, these cells are stained with a specific this one that is called chromaffin cells arising from the neural crus. Again, I am emphasizing this. Do you know these chromaffin cells or medullary cells, which type of nerve supply it gets? It gets a nerve supply from this means write it down because I have not mentioned it. It is getting it from the least splanchnic nerve. It gets its nerve supply by least splanchnic nerve. That is the sympathetic nerve. Again, a peculiarity here. These sympathetic nerves which are coming in adrenal medulla are myelinated. They are preganglionic sympathetic fibers. Remember, this is only place where we get in the like we got greater splanchnic, lesser splanchnic, and least. In the least, some fibers which are going to the medulla, they are myelinated. One. Second thing, they are preganglionic sympathetic fibers. This is only exception. That is what we are doing. And this cells, these axons will land on the surface of the chromatin cells in the medulla. In the medulla, they produce the epinephrine and non-epinephrine, and under again influence also on the glucocorticoids. And what is the precursor of this epinephrine and non-epinephrine? The cells, these chromatin cells, precursor is called chromogranin A. It's called chromogranin A, and this chromogranin A further forms the epinephrine and non-epinephrine. Also, it helps in formation of vasostatins, pancreatostatins, and parastatins. These are the few additional hormones. So, chromogranin A is produced in chromatin cells of the medulla oblongata. Why I am going to talk about this? Well, in the end, we talk about the applied importance of this. Functions of medulla. Lack of oxygen medulla is due to glucocorticoids. Already we have mentioned about this. Distinct zone of epinephrine. Now this is what has been found recently that epinephrine secreting cells are more separate than the non-epinephrine. But under the influence of glucocorticoids, non-epinephrine is converted into epinephrine. This process requires important three things. One is calcium ions. Second, a micronutrient called as a magnesium, This is one of the essential factor in production of epinephrine, and it is very much a ATP dependent process. Sudden increase in catecholamines in a normal process with the glucocorticoids, what it does. Sudden increase, that is what happens in fight and flight mechanism. First thing, increases blood sugar level, mobilizes free fatty acids. That is the first thing what happens. Dilatation of coronaries or making it to ready for fight and flight mechanism. That is what we call adrenal surge. Dilatation of coronary arteries. See, this is something very contrast. What you have to remember. Dilatation of coronary arteries, muscular arteries, especially skeletal muscles, increases the blood pressure as well as the heart rate, as well as the respiratory rate. So this is a very unique feature of the catecholamine, that is epinephrine and non-epinephrine with the glucocorticoids. So this is two important functions. Third, reduces blood supply to the skin and gut. Reduces the blood supply to the skin and gut. So this makes ready muscles hard to be active, increases heart rate, respiratory rate. So this is what the basic action of the adrenal gland, and that's why it is also called as essential gland of the life. This is how the medulla looks. Bunches of the cells, large cells. Then you can see the cells have large cells, palely staining, and a lot of sinusoid. We already said medullary veins are having a lot of muscle fibers. Now we talk about the clinical role. Why we talk about suprarenal gland? Because it's essential for the life and it has certain diseases to be talked about. First thing, it is emergency hormone which helps in flight fright mechanism. That is the most important thing. That is what we have to remember. Why we talk about that? There is one condition called as adrenal crisis, sudden reduction in the secretions of adrenal gland. Most commonest thing in Indian setup, it has been seen sometime because it has a lot of blood supply. This is one of the organ can involve because of tuberculosis. With the advent of HIV, the tuberculosis is increasing. Many times, a patient comes to you like simple thing like after delivery, patient having adrenal crisis because it is an emergency situation for a mother. She suddenly goes into shock. We first try to see does there is any bleeding. No bleeding is there. We try to see there is least loss. So there is no hypovolemic shock. Mother is not having any infection. Still mother is in shock. And here comes your suspicion. The most important thing should be there in your emergency tray is the cortisols in your injectable hydrocortisone, which is the most important thing available on the your emergency tray. Just give that a single shot of that. A patient revives back. You save the life. So adrenal crisis, and then take a history. Does many times patient will say that she was taking or he was taking the anti-tubercular drug irregularly and something like that. And this is what we call adrenal crisis has to be suspected whenever it is required when you are not able to get the cause of shock. It is not hypovolemic shock, it may not be a toxic shock. One of the things. So it is always been said that apart from giving fluid, we always, whenever we don't know exact cause, we always give the steroid to the patient. That is what we want adrenaline. This is a life-saving situation. You can save the patient with a simple act like giving the hydrocortisone. Another thing, apart away different way, these neural crystals which are migrating from the different places, especially around the aorta. What happens? It may not go into the medulla, it may lie as a clumps around the aorta or around the celiac trunk, or it may be, and it may increase in number. What it can do? Increase amount of epinephrine and epinephrine in the blood will give rise to a hypertension. So if it is a too severe type, we also call it as pheochromocytoma. We also call it as pheochromocytoma. Nowadays, because we know it secretes chromogranin A, we have antibody against that, or we have antibody tagged with the this one nucleotides. We can easily diagnose on CT scan these areas. Previous days we had to do a surgery and remove these neural crystals, extra neural crystals. But nowadays, because of the laser technology, we can just find out which places have a more amount of this, and we can just ablate them. Ablate them means we can just kill them by lasers. So that is what this pheochromocytoma leads to malignant hypertension and can be treated very nicely. That is what we have to remember. So third thing. Fourth thing, we already talked about premature fetuses. When I suspect premature delivery, I ideal time before 12 hours, we try to give the steroid, and it helps a lot to the baby's recovery. Its time in the NICU reduces by 80%. So you save a lot of life with this. Then congenital adrenal hyperplasia, autosomal dominant disorder. This is what we have to remember. So this is what we talked about the adrenal gland. Next time, just another thing. That is what I just want to talk about, that transplant prevention of the rejection. This is the place where we give a steroid to the patient, even though they are histocompatible match. Still, in the transplant patient, to prevent the rejection, we have to give a steroid lifelong. Remember, lifelong. And what happens? It has some side effects. That is what I said. First thing, it can act like aldosterone, can give rise to edema, accumulation of the fluid, hypertension. Another thing, it affects on the bone, demineralization of bone can occur. So the second thing. Third thing, it can lead to early cataracts. It can lead to the early cataract. And naturally, we know that steroids are immunosuppressants. That is what we are giving it. So the patient is very much likely to get infection. So the transplant patient should not go to the infected places. Like today we talk about corona. So patient it is taking the steroid either for autoimmune disease or for transplant patient, they should take a more care than the other person. Then prevents anaphylactic shock. So whenever I suspect anaphylactic shock, again I can use the hydrocortisone. So remember, always emergency treat should have a hydrocortisone. Steroids are given in autoimmune diseases. So these are the few applied importances. That is what we talked about. And misuse of steroids can lead to salt and water retention. That is what we already talked about. So this is clinical importance, what you can remember, and this is really requires a lot of time in a clinical practice. So next time we'll be talking about the skin. Thank you. Thank you very much.